Yeah, let me take their ass back to the
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's on that Wired article. Like all day today, just put non-stop tweets of just quotes from the article because of how insane it is that what happened.
Downplayed by whoever the man in charge is over there, in charge of things getting downplayed.
Which downplay?
Well, it didn't give any credit to the teacher, didn't give any credit to the style of teaching, which was the whole point. Which is what's crazy, but it just seems too stupid to think that really happened. Like that they wouldn't, that they wouldn't. I don't know. So what's going on? Do you know? Is there an update with this guy? Is he on Twitter?
I don't. He's not on Twitter, but
he's not. This teacher.
Wired ended up sponsoring the school itself, and they did an article with a bunch of different ways you can help support the school. And the article I'm talking about, it's this Wired article. It's a cover story, I think, from their October issue, and it's about this school in Mexico that, like, right across the border in Matamoros, and there's like this 30-something-year-old teacher who,
Juarez.
I'm
sorry.
What's his name?
Juarez, is that him?
Correa, yeah. And he's just a dude, man. He's like this teacher. He grew up in that area, and he decided to be a teacher and kind of like give back to his community. So, he's going into it with these very positive motives. And the catch is that the school itself is like on a garbage dump. It said all day, every day, you just smell shit. And there's like only one school, one computer with internet in the whole fucking school district. And so they can't even teach computers. They have to like walk into class with a fucking poster board of a computer and say, this is a monitor, like this is a keyboard, and this is what you would do if you were using the computer. And this guy just started doing all this research into kind of like self-learning and learning the art of learning for yourself and teaching yourself. And he basically he just threw everything out, like all the mandated lessons and everything, and just, he would, with math, just give him a problem, give him an equation, and just put them into groups, and they'd compete to solve it. It was like that simple. It was really that simple. No memorization. And long story short is that class, it said 10 students placed in the 99.9 percentile for the math all across Mexico. Yeah, whereas before, none of them did. And then one student who's the cover story, it's about her in particular. Her name is Paloma, and she scored perfect. Like fucking perfect on the test, the only one in the entire country. And how insane the improvement was, and it had nothing to do with money, and it had nothing to do with their economic situation, their poverty, their environment, because Paloma's story is like tragic, and her dad was on his deathbed from some sort of disease, and she's like 10 years old. These are like 10-year-olds. And so oh shit, it's Drew fucking Sample.
What's up, Drew?
Oh shit.
Andrew Miller.
What's going on, man?
What's going on, dude?
Little Drew Sample.
There you go. I'll let you see me here. My internet usually turns to shit once. Look at this beard.
Oh,
my beard.
Nice. Look, this is my buddy. This is my buddy Jolito.
What's up, Jolito?
Hey, hi, sir.
That's his Salvia super spirit name.
Yeah, that's
man, I haven't smoked salvia in a while.
Well, there's there's reasons to not do it. It's pretty insane. Well, I was recently talking to someone who said the first time they did it was they were like 17 at some party, and all their friends were like, "Dude, just hit it." It was like the purple level, which is it's like the blue belt of salvia smoking, and she hits it and was just blasted to another universe, and she wasn't ready for that. Like she just thought it was gonna be like getting high and hanging out, and then she's in another dimension. So that was a little intense. I would never recommend that ever.
You know what's weird is like my cousin smoked like the same amount I did, and he went into this like cartoon world. And really thought he was like spinning around this wheel, and I guess he was just like picking up shit and moving it around. We're like, what is he doing? And then he like, it freaked him out hardcore. And then when I smoked it, man, like I felt like I was in this cartoon world, but it was like I geeked out. Like I looked at my cousin and I laughed hysterically, like his younger brother, and I could not stop laughing. And like tears were like coming down my eyes. I'm just laughing so hard. And I kept looking at my cousin, and he was like, what are you laughing at me for? I'm like, I just know you're going to say something funny. And I couldn't stop laughing with the sense of like, oh, you're gonna say something funny real soon, Jake.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. I've had those experiences too, where it's very comedic and just the non-stop laughter. And then I've had it where it was like non-stop laughter, and then all of a sudden, nope, that's over. And then it's that more like, what is happening?
Yeah. I've had that. Like, I remember the second time I did it, I was seeing words, and I would like, they were just floating around. When I'd touch them, I'd have to say them. And it was like, it was really weird. And then like, do you know when like, there's like a mirror, and it's like at a right angle, mirrors at a right angle, and like there's like two, and you can see like multiple versions of you. Like I felt like when I look at a chair, I'd see like multiple chairs, but it was like a pure reflection. That was kind of crazy. But mushrooms were way more intense for me. I remember my first time doing mushrooms, I ate like an eighth. And
that's the way
I
I
was
go.
I was just dealing with some shit, and because I just like found out that like it was so surreal. So I remember I was leaving the cell phone company I was working for, the evil cell phone company, and I was going to work for an evil cable company, and I went out and I knew, like, I was just ready to be done with that cell phone company. Like, I was not happy. I was super depressed. And I went to, like, the Detroit the night before with my buddy, and we went to this, like, stoner metal show, which was pretty fucking awesome. And then the next day, I got this call from the company I was going to start working for. I'm like, well, this is weird, man. And I had this, it's like I knew that they were going to tell me that they rescinded their offer. So then I called them, and they're like, yeah, we've rescinded our offer, you failed the background check. And I'm like, what do you mean I failed the background check? They're like, yeah, you failed it. Like, you can't work here. And I was just like, I already quit my job, man. And he's like, sorry. And that was it. And then I freaked out. And then, so went through this ordeal. And the day I was supposed to start work there, I was like, well, I've been wanting to eat these mushrooms, and I might as well just do it now. Like, what better time than to like sort through my stuff than now? And I remember like I ate these shrooms in my and I remember like I was sitting in the dark in my like living room, and my buddy was coming over to hang out, and I was by myself for the most part. And I'm like looking at the ceiling, and I'm seeing like all this Mayan shit, and I'm like, man, I wonder if I'm really seeing this, or I wonder if I'm seeing this because I heard that's what you see. And then my buddy got there, and I felt like I had to puke, and I couldn't puke. And then like I'm just talking, and I'm like, then like I hit like this low, and then I just like kind of start crying. I'm like, dude, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life, like blah blah blah, like. And then like I was like constantly in this state for a long time that I was about to just lose it and bawl my eyes out. And that lasted, I felt like, for like a good 2 hours. And then it got to the point where it was like everything became clear to me that everybody was just a projection of me. Like everything was like just a projection in my head. And then I remember he got that new Camaro, like the ZL1, and he was like one of the first 50 people to have it. And we're like cruising down the highway, and I felt like I was in a spaceship. And then like we were gonna go try Maynard Keenan's wine, and I found this place that we could get it. So then we go into this like this wine and spirits, and I'm trying to like tell the guy what kind of wine I want, and I can't communicate with him. Like I'm just like staring at him, and I want to say, and I'm like feel really uncomfortable. My buddy's like, "What kind of wine is it, man?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna go outside and look on my phone. I don't know right now." And it was like this guy's trying to help me, and he must be thinking like, "What the fuck is this guy on?" And I wanted to tell him, "Hey, I'm on mushrooms," but that wouldn't have been like a good idea. And then we just drove for a while. And I remember we were driving in the highway, and I remember like it got to a point where like I seriously thought like, you know, what's the point of fucking living if everybody's just a projection? And I was like, well, there's a lot of point to living. And then then I started like just coming up. And then I just started thinking about my mom, and I'm telling him how much I love my mom, and I wish I could just hug her. Like I missed her so much, and like it's not like she'd been gone or anything. I just was like, I miss my mom. Like I love my mom. And sure enough, my mom calls me right then and there, and then she like is helping me like, hey, honey, everything's gonna be okay. You know, stop by. We're gonna fill out your unemployment stuff. You actually might qualify for unemployment, and you know, and you can always come here and live with us, and like. And it was just like everything, like, and from my mom talking to me, and then it just became like this super positive trip. And then I'm like looking at Earth and thinking how beautiful it is. And then we get to like this car dealership where this guy's gonna like change the logos on my buddy's car. And I just remember like going out in the garage, and like we were supposed to meet him at the desk, and I just keep walking, and I'm like, man, it's so pretty outside. And this guy's like, can I help you? And I go, oh yeah, I'm really sorry, man. I just wanted to take a look at this view. I didn't mean to invade on your space. And then we went and we ate some food, and then it started to just wear off. But it was man, that's like what really changed everything, though, man. Like that's like what started this whole podcast thing, and everything for me was that one mushroom trip, oddly enough. So it was because then I took shrooms again later, and I kind of worked through some shit more. And like just like, you know, like the key to like life was just to like love yourself, because if you love yourself, like it's easy, like everybody else is gonna love you back. And it was just like something so simple. And so that's what I just try to like remember whenever like shit, like I make maybe a third of what I used to make money wise, but I'm just like my life is so much better. Like I just like I'm putting myself in better positions and everything else like that. So it's interesting to think about, man. So, man, I didn't realize I was going to go in that rabbit hole just from hearing his salvia name, but that's what happened.
Dude, it couldn't be more like pertinent to even my reality right now as well, because you know, over the past couple of years, so much shit has changed with the way, you know, we do things and look at things, and no doubt about it that something like the salvia experiences, you know, these heavy duty, you know, transformative experiences have something to do with it. And I think at the physical level, that goes into the whole idea of like when you keep doing something like one way all the time, and that's all you do, your neurons start to harden to like stone, and at that point, that's it. Like your life becomes almost predetermined, because the way you're doing things, that's conditioning everything else just to fire kind of like automatically. And then that's where like conflict and dis-ease come in relationships, because anytime someone wants to try to get you to do something different, I mean, you know, like in a argument sense, like, hey, you know, have you thought of this? Anything that just challenges that ego, that their way is the best way, because they're just conditioned to it. They're like, don't ever think outside that box. And when that's the case, it's like that discussion of free will and determinism. It's like, well, I think it's like a mixture of both. If you're not conscious of the actions you're taking, like in a purposeful way, everything else just happens. It just fucking happens. Yeah. Your shit is shit because you let it be shit, and that's your life then is shit. So, and the neurons though become locked in, and so that's like this physical kind of that you can't like fight against without dramatic consciousness change.
It's like you're stuck in homeostasis.
Yeah, exactly. And so something like traveling to another country for a few months, I would consider that a psychedelic experience, and I know this for a fact because I've been there. Like, that's going to alter the way your brain thinks. You don't have a choice now. So now you have these new neural connection firings because you're having new experiences. You have to respond in a new way. You're having to learn a new language. Not just learning a new language to speak, you're also trying to learn it to read. And then you're having interactions with people in ways that you've never had before. So when you explain it in that kind of terms, like travel to another country, just substitute country for psychedelics. And it's a similar type experience, like something you could have never imagined before. Because just because you've read something or seen something in a video, that doesn't mean it's real until you've experienced it. And same thing with psychedelic experience. So when the mushroom research, those John Hopkins studies, goes into that kind of like reset discussion of a Control-Alt-Delete, on ego, and you get to see that in a different way, for yourself. And I think that kind of reset helps you take a new consideration for what your possibilities are, like in a very honest way. And it frees yourself up to do it without the ego and without the resistance. If you're, if you've read War of Art or watched the podcast.
I really need to read that book because I heard the podcast that Aubrey Marcus did with Stephen Pressfield was really good, and I have the Audible, and it's like one of those things that like just keep. You know what I mean? Like there's things in your life that just keep popping up in the forefront of your consciousness, and then it's just like I should really look at this because it keeps appearing in my life over and over and over again. And that's definitely one of those things. I need to get on that book.
Well, I think that just with everything you've said already, like it's such a perfect moment. Like I've sent it to a couple people now, and they've responded, this could not have come at a more important moment because it's in the middle of lots of like reality shifting and adjustments, doing things like what you're talking about. And this is where, in a really strange way, we're like on this same wavelength of thinking because I'm officially going on sabbatical this January. So like, this semester is my
and dude, so I'm excited for you.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's obviously nerve-wracking too, but at least in my past I feel I'm lucky because I've always had this entrepreneurial thing going on. So I've never had a problem with change.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about income change, like you're talking about, that's where it becomes real. You're not like keeping a job and trying to do something else. You've decided, I'm just going to do something else.
Yeah.
And that's
Sometimes that decision's made for you because that's really what I wanted. But I didn't want to be the one that made that decision because I didn't want to face I didn't want to face everybody saying, why would you quit a job, when you're making $60-something thousand a year. That's a good job. You have good benefits, and it's like, man, that's not what life's fucking about, man. Like, we're all sold to get a good job with benefits, but it's just such bullshit, man. Like, you're never gonna be happy with just a good job with benefits. Like, you have to get out there and figure out what you want to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we talk about entrepreneurial stuff a lot. That's why I did all the grimy network marketing things.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like I've always, and like the biggest thing is like I knew I'd quit on myself because I'd been stuck in that same job and just sitting in a fucking mall kiosk trying to get people to stop so I could sell them a cell phone. And I got pretty good at it in a really disgusting way. And well, it wasn't like I was it disgusts me now because
No, I know exactly what you're saying. I know exactly.
you know what I mean. And like now I still work retail, and like, it's really weird because I don't like just like my whole thing is just take care of the customer. Like, that's all you have to do. Well, you're honest with the customer, and like you do what's best for the customer, and you know, honestly, there's some piece of shit people out there, and you don't let them take advantage of you. But I mean, at the same time, like, don't take advantage of them. So it's like a even trade. But you were gonna say something there, Andrew.
No, I was really just gonna agree, and how for me, there's been a dramatic transition from this old style way of doing business that I was trained in. I mean, from my business degree and my other business interactions, were this very, like, uber professional, no soul, no character, nothing to it. Like the ultimate in white people's business, and prim and proper, the stupid shit and like costumes and. You know, I've never been like that in my
costumes are great.
Yeah, well, they're great to like choke people, you know, choke them out with their tie.
That's just the best way to say it is costumes. I mean, like Wes sells suits, so he has to put on the suit costume every day. Where I work, I have to put on black pants, black shoes, and a polo shirt, and I put on that costume every day. And it's like. I think like the costumes have a purpose when you do run a business. I think like to franchise or to build like a brand, like that's definitely important, but you don't want to be wearing the costume for too long because eventually you're going to become the costume.
That's it. That's one of those predetermined outputs. It's just you can't. There's nothing you can do, and all you're going to end up doing is coping. And so when people live their lives in that predetermined way. You see that's where all that conflict and disease is in their life because they're always coping with something. There's something that's filling that actual conscious need for like creation and expression.
Absolutely.
And at some point in that person's life, or in all of our lives, you know, there's probably someone who you respected who either didn't, you know, told you couldn't do it, you know, gave you some form of, well, in Pressfield would say resistance in your life. But when you're a child, and this is a big deal that we talk about like my critical thinking course, is that killing curiosity and killing creativity in children. And sometimes all it takes is a parent saying one time, you know, tell them, oh, that's a stupid question, or don't ask me that shit, or, you know, you're talking too much, shut up, or go to your, what are the other example, and
fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard parents say just, and this is to a kid who's just asking questions.
Yeah.
In other words, they want to know something, and so anyway, my point is that it's simple as one time in someone's life, and then from there on, everything's just, they do things that are pre-approved, you know, that are predetermined, because they're not going to rock any boats. Yeah, they're not going to rock any boats. They're going to follow the orders, and that's the way the education system is designed, because it was designed.
It's Prussian. It's the Prussian education system. Right?
Yeah. Don't just be a good student, because when you think back to your experience as a student, K through 12, what was the best student? The one who caused no problems, who never talked when they weren't supposed to talk. You know, everything was perfect and proper. And you know what? I always hated those students. They drove me fucking crazy. I'm like, just do something. Like, do something to get in trouble, like, one time.
I remember I'd always ask questions in class, and people would be like, oh, Drew's talking again. It's like, yeah, because I want to fucking understand what's going on. Like, I'm not going to go home and read this stupid book. Like, I'm going to talk to this teacher, figure out what they want on the test, not have to study and get a B. Like, I was okay with that. Like, that was me in high school. And, you just think about the way high school is, you know, sit down, take notes, bell rings, go to your next place, bell rings, go to your next place, bell rings, eat lunch, bell rings, oh, you have to go to the bathroom, raise your hand, oh, you can go to the bathroom now. Like, it's just so crazy.
Well,
man.
at that point, you're already ruined.
Oh, yeah,
like,
hands down.
Because, I know so many people who are really smart people, but they gave up, in high school. And either stopped showing, and I've talked to so many people on Twitter like this too, they don't have a college degree, they don't have anything, very intelligent and beyond capable of learning anything and talking about anything and understanding anything, so in a thinking sense. But because it was just so fucking boring and ridiculous.
It was brutal.
They just said, hey, why am I even going to try? This is just stupid. Yeah. This is stupid. I get it. I was the exact opposite. I thought it was stupid, but I did it because I wanted to be.
The same as you.
I was valedictorian. Of course, I gotta get that shit together. And
what was great was you hated it, and people really cared, and you probably didn't care, and you were still valedictorian.
Yeah,
that's the best.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would try to get good grades just to piss people off. In college, I remember multiple classes that there was a curve. If there was a curve, I would work extra hard just so there couldn't be a curve, just because I was an asshole. I remember there's this abnormal science class, and I'd always get 100% on this exam because I knew it was harder for average students, but I'd taken so much hardcore science that I knew how to study for exams, and I'd just get 100% all the time. And me and this girl that would study together, either her or I would get 100%, and everybody hated us. Because there was no curve, and so they would get their D's, and we'd have our A's, and it didn't matter.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sorry, I had to brag on myself there, guys.
Yeah, definitely, man. Okay, so this is my zombie Barbie. She keeps falling, so I gotta put her somewhere else.
Shit, you're all good, man.
Well, yeah. She go right here. Okay.
She's hanging out.
Yeah, she is hanging out. Yeah, I'm totally on that page. It would drive me crazy, too. I would be consciously upset and disturbed when somebody was trying too hard to memorize shit. You know what I mean? I would versus trying to figure it out. I would remember thinking I didn't understand it. I don't think then, but now I think back and go, wow. And so they would be the best at anything that was memorization.
Yeah.
But if it went beyond that, it just had to stop. It was once again, it was almost predetermined for them too, because they were just following the orders of the classroom, and it's the book learning, right? And I've talked to people with advanced degrees who you don't have to be concerned that they're going to say anything different than what was taught to them in the books and the classes they went to. The standard narrative of whatever that their field is, period.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of crazy.
It's the dogma of education. It's the demigod of education. Well, this is what it says. I mean, there's there's plenty of times that even in science, there's this great article. I tried to get the guy to do my podcast, and he's like, I just had a baby, I don't have time. But he wrote this article about scientific journals you can't necessarily trust them, because it kind of goes back to the whole trivia method thing, people putting their logic in front of their input or their grammar. You try to process information before you gather the information, you know what I mean? So, well, this is how I want this experiment to work out, so I'm going to make sure it works out that way, instead of forming a hypothesis, I think this is going to happen. Okay, let me set up, these are my experiments, I'm going to have a blind study, I'm going to have and it's it's just crazy. Everything, it seems now, is just about creating these fake numbers, even in law enforcement with the CompuStat thing. I was listening to this American Life episode about this New York cop named Adrian Schoolcraft, who he didn't want to, they had all these quotas, you had to have so many quotas, and he was I'm not going to do that, so they tried to make him be a beat cop, and he's that's fine, I like talking to my neighborhood. And then it got to the point where, they were coming after him so bad, he just started,
he was recording any time he had an interaction with anybody that was in the NYPD. And now he's like wrote a book about it. And like they came to his house and broke into his house, and they said that they thought he was going to kill himself, and it was all because he went home early one day, and he was trying to like get internal affairs involved, and he contacted the FBI and all this crazy stuff, and it was all because he was going against the numbers. He was going against, oh well, you have to get these quotas, and because he stood up for like what's really justice. Like they all like I mean, I have so many issues with the NYPD to begin with. Just the fact that, I mean, I could talk on and on about why I don't like police in general, but I think it goes hand in hand though. Like that's how everything is. Like any bureaucracy, it's about the status quo. It's all about numbers. Even in sales, like it's all about numbers. And there's a good way that you can fudge your numbers and make it look like you're way better than what you are. And in business, like you should never do that. But you look at so many companies. It's like look at the banking, the real estate bust, the whole banking thing. I mean, the whole Chase. Chase is what they have to pay like $14 billion for, and they made 80% more than the $14 billion. So they have a $14 billion fine for making 80% more than $14 billion. Like it's just a joke. Like. Things are, it's like everything is like this smeared reality. Like nothing's real anymore, and that's what's interesting. Like where you were going, to tie all this back. Sorry guys, I ate some food and now I'm coughing and everything like that and burping. But anyways, let me tie this all in together. It's like just like what you were saying about like wearing the uniforms or wearing the costumes, like and like going away from that business approach, like. Because people want a real business approach. Like, everything is so fake. And you think about people watching TV and scripted reality. Like, oh, I love Duck Dynasty because that's real life for them.
Yeah.
Like, it's totally not. Like, I think it's great that those guys have that much money. Like, and they have their beards and they live their lifestyle. Like, I'm not hating on that at all. Like, that's awesome for them. But that's their life. That's not my life. Like, I'm not going to sit there and sit on a couch and watch them live their life. Like, I want to go out there and live my life. Like, so I just think it's like the human condition is just really interesting right now. Like, it's interesting in the sense that, I mean, like, I sell TVs, and people, like, ask me, like, about cable, and I'm like, I haven't had cable in 6 years. They're like, what? How have you never had cable for 6 years? It's like, because I use the internet.
Yep.
And, here, like... Yeah. Yeah, like some lady like said that like she was like getting defensive, and her husband knew I wasn't trying to be offensive. Like her husband was pretty cool. They were talking about
you see how you said she was getting defensive.
Yeah.
Because what's about to happen?
Her reality's gonna change.
Yeah.
If she cancels her cable.
You
like
see
she
what I'm
can't
saying?
watch. Yeah, she can't watch CNN anymore. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, look,
Yeah.
there's plenty of other news sources besides CNN. Like
Fuck
you have
CNN.
to think. Yeah, there's like 4 people that own all the major news networks. So you have Rupert Murdoch's agenda, you have Ted Turner's agenda,
Nope.
you have Viacom's agenda, and you have everybody else's agenda. So, like, that's why critical thinking is so important. I mean, that's why, you know, as much as I don't necessarily agree with Jan Irvin on a lot of stuff, I do respect how he promotes the trivia method, how he promotes critical thinking, and it's like, you know, if like applying that to my life has changed so much, because even in like, then you go to like, okay, so then you leave mainstream media, then you go to someone like Alex Jones. Like Alex Jones, like Joe Rogan even says, he's only 70% right.
Yeah.
The rest of it is like he's trying to make you feel terrified. And guess what? You still have advertisements about his solar generators, the gusset jeans.
Yeah.
Oh, get this real soap. Oh, get this food because the world's going to end. You need a generator. You need all this stuff. And it's like, you know, that's Alex Jones's agenda. So you have to, like, know how to, like, figure. Then I got to the point where I was just like, man, I just don't care anymore. Like, I don't care about the news. I know what's really good. If something's really big, I'm going to hear about it just from word of mouth, and I can do my own research and make up my own conclusion. And then continue to live my life. Like, I think it's I don't know, like it's really been refreshing for me to not have to not have to like read the news or listen to Alex Jones anymore. read the Drudge Report, like, because it's just like you're gonna want to kill yourself. And life is so much better than all that nonsense. And I think that I was gonna go somewhere else with this, but I totally just lost my train of thought just thinking about that stuff. But I think so I think becoming I guess being like a libertarian anarchist and just thinking instead of thinking about what's wrong or our system now, I just kind of figured I was so kind of out of the loop for a while that I didn't realize that Ron Paul was using the UN to sue the owners of RonPaul.com. That was just a huge punch in the dick for me. I was just like, man, a guy who is against big government and everything else like that, he really was that phony that now he's, oh, the UN, I want that money from RonPaul.com. And it was just crazy to me, man. And then thinking about how our current political structure is just this show. Ron Paul's there to draw people like me in, so then I still go and vote. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm done voting. I'm not going to vote anymore.
Well, that's the old quote, is that if voting ever changed anything, they'd make it illegal.
Yeah, it would. You're absolutely right.
I mean, even Stalin would make jokes about stuff like that. And I mean, this is someone who in no way, he was mocking it, which is always crazy to see that in a certain insight. Democracy is not an answer. More authorities and power to other human beings is never the answer. And this is where I come down. It's funny. See, once again, I think we're kind of on this same trajectory of thought, is taking it more to just the human level and start making decisions based on humans. Not because of labels, not because of a party you affiliate with, not because you have to disagree with that other person because their label means you can't really agree with them, whether it's religious or political, cultural, ethnic, nationalities. I mean, the whole concept of the nation state itself, it's only been around since 1648 in the Treaty of Westphalia. That's not very fucking long. And it's quite obvious that it's an antiquated technology for a way of bringing people, just peaceful human interactions without conflict. But when you, for instance, when you raise kids in systems that are based on force and control, which is the way the government school system is today, because it doesn't matter if you don't like waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's what you're going to fucking do. Well, why are you going to fucking do that? What if waking up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon is your best time? Just because 90% of the people get by and they're good, you have to consider the opportunity cost of, maybe dismantling the brains of a large portion of those humans, and they'll never think again, because that's a reality right now. I teach a critical thinking course. I've not had a student yet who says they've ever been taught critical thinking.
No.
And I've had plenty of students who say they don't even know what it means.
Well, they teach you fake critical thinking, I think, a lot of times. Man, we stopped being friends, actually. It was all over, we were watching Sunday Night Football, and I just started doing the podcast, and he was a good friend of mine. He was a really good friend of mine, funny, kind of an eccentric guy, and he basically, I said, I think it's funny, if players didn't actually wear helmets, there'd probably be a lot less concussions. And just from the state of the argument, and he blew his gourd and was like, show me some, it was he knew, enough to be dangerous. He was like, show me some peer-reviewed studies. Show me some peer-reviewed studies. And it got to the point where, I thought I was going to have to fight him. And then he,
Oh, man. Drew, are you there? You're cutting out on us. Oh, this is such a good story, too. Buddy. Drew. Hey.
Good old.
So
Okay. Technical difficulties.
Oh.
This is crazy.
insane. And I'm like, and then he like just. I'm gonna call you back, dude. Hold on, Andrew.
Yeah. Hey, you there? Yeah. Okay. We're gonna reset this. This is awesome.
We gotta hear that story.
I know. He said he was about to fight.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
stopped.
So we're.
You're about to
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
No,
so
you're
I
thinking
thought,
you might fight.
yeah, I thought he was gonna fight me. Like he kind of grabbed me aggressively to try to tell me how crazy I was because I had this belief, and it's just like, and then he like told me that, and then it got like weirder. Like then like I.
Oh man. Maybe it's a video.
Mother clucker.
I know. We're gonna get this together. It's like halftime. It's like Topo Chico.
Topo Chico.
Yeah,
Close
I think
the
the video's
window.
messed it up.
Do you think it's a video?
Yeah, it eats up bandwidth. Skype is like, there needs to be more competition besides Skype and Google Plus video. Like I was talking to this brilliant guy, Daryl Becker, who I'll talk about him later, but he just pointed out the fact that like there needs to be more video services like this. But anyways, back to this story. So my friend, like I thought he was gonna fight me, and we're watching like Sunday Night Football. And he just storms out of my house, and I just was like so turned off. I'm like, you know, anybody to lose their shit like that, like it just, there's no reason to ever act like that, especially over something that trivial of my opinion about football helmets. And it's just like, I would have told him like, you know, no, I haven't done a ton of research. I probably was making a general statement, but then a bunch of research came out afterwards saying, yeah, like people use helmets as weapons. Football players do.
Yeah.
And then we started being cool again. And then I sent him a card like saying, hey, I value your friendship. I'm not sure what I said or did, but I still value you as a friend. And it was just like I was just trying to be the bigger person. I'm like, I'll give him one more chance. And then he told me you need to read a book on critical thinking. And I was just like really? Like this is kind of interesting. And because then I also said that like how it's a joke, like because corporations donate so much money to political campaigns and everything else like that. And then he also said that I was lying there, and I'm like, like he just lives in this this make believe world that he's created. And then and the problem was too, and he was like, you're such a nice guy, but you just don't have any critical thinking skills. And I was just like, man, like that's like probably for me, like if you don't respect my thoughts or you don't respect my thought process or my opinion, then I probably don't need you in my life anymore.
That's a great, excellent point and decision.
Yeah, and so we were cool again, and then I mean the weird thing is though is like he's still like it's like he's got this weird loyalty. Like even though he doesn't talk to me anymore, he knows Wes sells suits, so randomly he showed up, and Wes saw him, and he bought some suits for my brother. So I don't know, like I think he just has like some issues. Like I know he has issues with his parents. Like the weird thing about the guy is like he's totally like a hipster, and his mom is like this high up person in a very large telecommunications company, and it's like he hates the fact that he comes from like a family where his mom actually has a bunch of stupid money and has like all this property just because she doesn't know what to do with her money and because all of her life is work and all this other stuff. And it's like it's interesting when I kind of break it down psychologically. And I've tried to reach out to the guy again and then just said, hey, let's put this behind us and let's be friends. But he just hasn't responded, so it's no sweat off my back. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just funny, man. Like it's funny to think that I was attacked for not using critical thinking, which, I mean, I'll admit, like, back in the day, like, I didn't fact-check a lot of stuff. I didn't know how. It's like, well, this is the counter-opinion of CNN, so it must be right. I think, like, I started to realize with, like, the whole Sandy Hook shooting, which I still think there's some fuckery that's going on there, but I don't know what it is. Like, I don't have enough information. Like, I wasn't there, but, like, the way that... like what was funny was like the conspiracy sites they showed actors, and one of them was John Goodman, and I'm like, that is not John Goodman. This is totally bullshit. It's just like, you get bullshit on both sides. Like, so that's why critical thinking is so important. So you can filter out the information. Like, you can really just form your own opinion and be like,
Yeah.
well, and another problem is people think just because one thing that somebody says is a lie doesn't mean that something else is. Like, I think it's very common that they feed you 70% of truth and 30% bullshit, but that 30% is a huge 30%.
Yeah, dude. It's. So much of what you're saying is so true. And what I think is kind of interesting when you see people, you do know the more you become a critical thinker, the more you're conscious and aware of, like you said, the words people use, the way they use those words, the definition and meanings of those words, and then how it can all come together to fuckery or to potential truth. It could be either or. And because you can have logic that's valid, which simply means it makes sense. It doesn't mean that it's true. And that's where the average conspiracy type stereotype, that person, they kind of tend to fall into it. And it doesn't mean you're stupid at all. It probably means you're really smart, because you do get how the logic can work. It's just that it's only valid. Whereas if you talk about sound logic in itself, the premises always have to be true in regards to his conclusion. So there's no. So then that allows for a lot more skepticism and questioning without coming to guaranteed conclusions. Anyway, my point is that lots of really smart people get trapped in logic systems who inherently are not built on anything that's guaranteed to be true, because there is a lot of lack of evidence when you look at the details. But it's just like a trap. It's like a web. And it goes back to what you were saying, like where, or your transition and my transition, where you're stuck. No, you're not stuck. You're just doing things one way all the time. So you can think about doing something different, but it's like Sisyphus, and like you're pushing the giant boulder up to the top, and you think that's where it's going to end, and it falls down the other side, and oh shit, I gotta go back down and push it back up. And like that's your routine. You can think about not doing it, but somehow every time you get to the fucking top, it rolls back down, and you gotta go roll it back up. You never get, in other words, you never get to that point that you think you need to get to. Like, it's always gonna be the carrot, that you're running after, as opposed, to finding contentment in yourself first and foremost, and have that kind of love of yourself without ego, And then
we come into personal peace.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're okay with who you are. Well, that's Socrates. That was the ideal. Was at some point you figure out who you actually are, so you know thyself. And when you know thyself, you have two choices. You either kill yourself because you hate it, or you start working with it. And you find peace with it. And when you go into corporate cookie cutter culture, or you go into political stereotypes and labels or ethnicities, it's all great fun entertainment, but in the end it's not real. None of that's actually real, but your perception of it is. So that's why it is actually real to you as an actual person, but it has no actual objective context in reality, because it's not based on what you think it's based on, or it's not what you think it is. If you think there's such thing as human fucking races, you've got a long way to go, because there's no such thing as race. So when you know that there's no such thing as race, this is a manufactured concept and term, then you can see why it's used rhetorically with such power to divide people.
Yeah. It's like a tool to, it's a tool to make you not trust your senses, or to turn your senses against you. So your sense of sight, like that's what it is. It's a tour. I mean, it's a trick to turn your sense of sight against you. So you see somebody, oh, they look different, they act a little bit different, you know, their hair's different, their skin color's different. Well, they must be wrong then, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's like I feel like that's like the goal of. You know, it's weird. Like I don't really think that there is this like just mastermind, or, you know, this them that's really out there. I feel like it's like a clusterfuck of a bunch of different thems trying to gain like authority over people or control the masses. But I think that's a good tool to use for them, is the idea of race or racial sensitivity or all that other bullshit.
Well, and put it like this, like, so consider this type of system where just because there's random interactions between billions of actors, you know, individual human beings, in any type of system, just in a mathematical sense, so you're not even taking into account consciousness, when you randomly have 6 billion, 7 billion people in all the interactions on a daily basis, shit is going to happen, like, you know, chaos theory type shit, and where you have these unconnected people, and out of their random interactions create an actual systemic order. And it's really, it's hard for some people to actually see that, but that's like kind of basic economics, or in a free market sense. That's why order is created out of an absolute free market with no control, and not vice versa. And so when you allow for that, you know that the craziest shit possible is very likely to happen, and it's likely that it happens in a way that could be perceived like it was impossible. There's no way that this could have just been random. Yeah. Except in a network of just random interactions, that's just going to happen, whether you like it or not. And so that's part of critical thinking. You have to just know that that's something that you can think of. I mean, some people can't even think of that, is my point. And so when we come back to like, you know, top-down education, top-down control in society, the nation state. See, think about the nation state. Think how many people refuse to acknowledge that something happens outside of their country, and or potentially their state or province, you know, whatever their local identity is. It's off. They're cut off. Like, if it doesn't happen in this line that some fucker drew in the land at some point, they said, anyone inside this line, now you're this, and whether you like it or not, this is who you are, this is what you're going to be about. That's a form of control in someone's life that if you don't recognize that, once again, it's predetermined. So now if your label is American, and go America, and Team America, we're number one, the first time anyone actually honestly, constructively criticizes something that the American government does, you're going to get, just like the fuckers at Best Buy, you're telling about TVs and cable, you're going to get defensive, and your ego's going to be hurt, and you're just not going to be able to process that consciously. And it's like, the solution, instead of focusing on, like, this is why I don't like the outcome of a lot of the conspiracy discussion, is they assume up front that they know that this is what's happening. And so,
it's broken logic.
Yeah, and it's kind of like turned upside down. And now all my energy is dedicated to proving that this is true, that this is something that has happened. You know, like, because you're never going to be able to keep up in real time. So you're not proving that it's happening now, unless you have like a real-time surveillance, you know what I mean? But in general, you're trying to prove that, this event in the past was a conspiracy because of X, Y, and Z. Well, okay, fuck it. It could all be true. Let's say it's all true. what does that have to do with what you're doing right the fuck now in this present wave that we're all sharing and living in? Like, what are you doing to look forward to making something better, more positive, taking control of your own fucking life? Okay, stop. Like, you already know this. You can get so deep into that shit that it's months, it could be years off your fucking life.
Yeah, it's part of it too, like, think about, like, why I like to read that stuff. Like, part of it's entertaining.
I agree.
But another part is, it's also, like, like, going, like, if you listen to Jan Irvin and Gnostic Media, like, Jan, like, I have a lot of respect for the guy. Like, he does his own thing. And, like,
I totally agree, too. And there's no doubt about it, and I just want, I have to say this, because this has been coming up a lot lately for some reason, is you have to separate ideas from the person as well.
Yeah.
So it's,
it's
exactly. Real easy to get a bad taste about somebody because you saw X, Y, or Z happen, and so now it's a personality thing, or But you can take the ideas separate, talk about that, and make different decisions. But no, absolutely. I totally respect what he does. I think it's awesome that he's out there trying to put all that shit out there. So.
Oh yeah, and also sometimes, like, I feel like just my experience with him, like, when I had him as a guest, like, he was super easily defensive because at the time, like, so many people were sending him hate mail.
Yeah.
Which I think if I went through that same thing too, I'd probably get to that point as well. And but, like, just the whole, like, mind fucks of, like, Jim Morrison died. Like, Jim Morrison's dad was the war general who was a general who was in charge of the Gulf of Tonkin. And Jim Morrison's death was the same day that his dad retired from the military. That's a really weird coincidence. Like, that's a really weird coincidence. And then, like, it's just like, okay, like, like, there's a lot of other, and man, I don't know off the top of my head.
So if you just stop, like, if you stop right there and you tell me this, I'm already in my head, and I've never heard that before. I'm already in my head processing by saying, is it possible that that's could possible? So the words I'm using, like, could it possibly be random in nature? So, like, in other words, if I know that that's a possibility, especially regardless of how, like, weird or strange it is, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, the strangeness has nothing to do. That's not an argument that something actually is happening behind the scenes.
No.
So the average, like, a lot of people have problems to see it like that. Now, my point is, though, in the end, you still are open to what's about to be said, what I'm about to be told.
Oh, yeah.
And if it lines up, then anyway, does that make sense? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I just think it's interesting because it's like, wow, like, the Doors really were like a spearhead of counterculture of the 60s.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's like, so his dad, though, was part of the other thing that was part of the culture of going to Vietnam. And so I don't know enough information to really make up my mind, but it's easy to, like, it's I think, like, my whole thing with that is, like, something that I've really learned from Jan is, no, everybody's just a man, and just at the same time, like, you can't discredit that the Doors had good music, because the Doors did have good music. So let's say like the theory is that Jim Morrison was just like he was like a plant from the government, and they were the reason why the Doors started getting big. But the Doors had really good music too. I mean, there's a reason why it worked well. Like, if that's the whole thing. So my whole thing is, like, I don't necessarily believe that, but I think it's interesting. Like, you can't take anybody and just put them more than just being human. Like, you can't just because somebody's, like, good at expressing themselves musically or anything like that, you can't put them on, like, a higher level than yourself. Because as long as you're doing that, you're always going to lose. Like, you're always going to stay in that 9 to 5. Like, punch the clock. Oh, guess what? It's fun day Sunday, everybody, or Sunday fun day, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Me and the wife got to go do this. It's Sunday fun day.
Yeah.
Like, it's Sunday funny. That's what you do on Sunday. Drew, why are you calling me at Sunday night? You know, I got a family. I got to work in the morning. I work.
And dude, can you relate to this? We've been talking about this a lot lately because Jolito here just quit his job.
Nice, Jolito.
And
How you feel?
It was nice, and it's still pretty nice.
As long as you got money. I remember when I cashed on my 401k, it was so nice to just wake up when I got through sleeping for like 5 months, and it was just like, you know what I mean? Like I did that for 5 months. I went to Morocco, and you know, it was just like, you know, like everybody's like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't really care what I'm doing. I'm enjoying my life. Like that's what you should be doing, is enjoying your life. And so, anyways, back to what you were saying.
No, dude, you're totally right, man. That's the point. And
I was just gonna say, there's no way the government could have had anything to do with Jim Morrison, because the Doors did do really, they were awesome. There's no way the government could do anything that awesome. It's too good and too real. The psychedelics and all the music, and that had to be real. There's no way the government was involved. They're too fucking stupid.
Well, but here's the whole thing, right? So let's say the counter argument to that. So there is I guess I haven't read them, but apparently there are documents, which I read the documents, but there are documents showing that. Well, another interesting thing is that like this I did look up. Like Aldous Huxley's family were Fabian socialists, and so Aldous Huxley there is traces of Timothy Leary saying that Aldous Huxley was the guy that was providing them LSD, and so I think psychedelics can be used for. I really do think you can misuse them. It's just like a kid. The second time I used and we'll get back to the Doors, but the second time I used psychedelics, I was around people that were drinking, popping volume, doing all this stuff, and mushrooms was just a drug to them. It wasn't something that they were treating with respect. And I think that it's easy, if you can convince people that this is just a fun thing to do, because get fucked up, stand up against the man, I think you could use it to control people. I think you could use it to suggest things, because just like what we've said, you press a reset button as soon as you take those psychedelics, right? So now you've been reset, but with the reset, let's say you don't have critical thinking skills.
Well, and that's the point. And
yeah.
I see this, so actually in the classroom, I talk about this quite often, especially because, you're 18, 19, 20, for a lot of people that's around that age frame where they're going to be first introduced to psychedelics, and especially in a university sense, and it seems like it could potentially be more common, but I always put it out that you have to know ahead of time, and taking other people's word for something they're giving you in the first place is pretty fucking terrifying if you understand what's possible when you're in that experience. And that could be everything from drinking too much, which can become a psychedelic experience, no doubt about it, because I've been there, I think we've all been there, or too much fucking weed, and that becomes extremely psychedelic, and or too many pain pills. I mean, so you have to know ahead of time, and that's that critical thinking to process your decision making before you do it, and consider your situation, your environment, the people around you. And I've had this experience before with a friend of a friend who only one time in her life had she ever done psychedelics. It was a mushroom trip, and she was just kind of going on about how bad it was. And I guess she was really taken by surprise that I was so positive about the mushroom experience and psychedelics maybe in general. So then we start talking, and long story short is, she ends up admitting, the reason why it's a bad trip is because my life was so fucking bad at the time, and she refused to actually address it, and so she kept persisting in the bullshit, and the mushroom experience opened her eyes to see that, and then she was able to integrate it and then make some dramatic changes in her life over the next few months. But like you said, if you're doing that around shitty people, just in a shitty sense, like in a negative energy type sense, you can have a really bad experience. You can have a really bad experience with marijuana around shitty people, and so
Absolutely.
Especially if you're not real used to it.
And also think about like I also think about the '60s, and like I don't know if I think Jolito actually has an excellent point that the government couldn't have been behind it because
well, no, you got me rethinking it though, because then I started thinking about this new shit that they could supposedly do with like implanting memories into your fucking mind.
True.
The CIA is a scary thing.
Yeah, it's so scary.
So I think that it's possible to definitely get some pretty deep level control on a person who, one, is not a rational critical thinker up front, who, two, is not a very persistent person, like very willful and determined, like in a consciousness sense. Like one of the things that I always come up against on the Salvia trip is a lot of force and control that I push back against, because it's kind of like that's my expression. Like that's kind of what I feel like it's showing me is that you don't have to control things. You may think that that's better to do that, but that you actually really don't have to do that, and it'll still be okay.
Well, in reality, too, you're never in control of anything.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what's like so crazy about like gun laws, like people pushing gun laws, or the crazy effect public shootings have. Which was funny, like even that LAX one. There's this funny video, and it's clearly a mannequin that they're pushing out, and it's so clear to me that it's a fake human, and it's like just one of these dummies. And you look at it like, yeah, that doesn't look human. But then, like even people that I know that like, it's like there's people that like, oh, I like watching conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura. Like that's really interesting. But I'm not going to actually take a stance and say whether I agree with it or not. I just like to watch it, which is fine. Like, it's better entertainment than most things. But, like, I was sitting there and I was watching this video, and it's like it's clearly like they're clearly pushing this fake human down to. Well, number one, there's a few issues with it. Like they're pushing a fake, like it's police pushing an injured person in a wheelchair, and they're running them to an ambulance. But, like, my first question is, why are they even pushing somebody to an ambulance? Why isn't the ambulance up there? Why is the police moving somebody? Why isn't it a paramedic? And it was just so fake. Like, it was just, like, it's all a show. To me, it was just a big performance. And then, like, people are all going to be up in rounds again, guns are the problem. It's guns are the problem. Like, I can't believe children could die like that. If there wasn't guns, those children wouldn't be dead. And it's like that's broken logic.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. And I'll harp on this point a lot in discussions in class about how what prevents you from drinking a gallon of bleach?
Oh, the critical thinking skills. Hopefully.
Yeah, because now and so the discussion can go two ways. It can go someone responding kind of in the sense of like, well, because I know if I drink too much, it's going to kill me. And I go, exactly. You are critically thinking the situation out, and you have adequate information to inform your thinking. And so, no big deal, right? Okay, same thing. You put a gun, it's loaded, put it in your hand. What stops you from pointing it to your head and pulling the trigger? Well, you know it's going to kill you. Well, the difference is that there are people who respond and say, well, because, like, I'm not supposed to. Why do you not steal from people? Well, because it's a law. There's a law. You're not supposed to steal. I'm like, so if there's no law, and I had a confrontation. It's like there's a part of me that's always very pro confrontation, but then
Yeah.
there's like a higher, I like to consider it a higher portion of my consciousness that says it's the worst thing you're gonna do. But that's my Irish insanity genetics, probably. I don't have any fucking idea. And but when it comes to thinking, and it's in an academic sense, I always have to try to engage that thinking to see if we can explore it and open minds and change perspectives, or like get them to see a different perspective. And so we had the confrontation about what were we just talking about?
So you had a confrontation about somebody who's saying it's a law. It's a law.
Oh yeah. And I'm like, thanks, yeah.
No problem.
And it came to murder, and it's like, so why do you not murder? I'm thinking like, all right, I'm just, I'm thinking I'm in college, like I'm gonna let them know. I'm just gonna break it down to the most simple way possible that I can explain this logic point. Is, well, what about murder? Why do you not murder somebody? Well, because it's illegal. It's illegal. I'm like, and then I just said to him real fast, and it was right on point. Was that I wouldn't want to be on a boat with you in the ocean where it is legal.
Yeah.
Because are you going to murder me?
And I think that's why people are afraid of lawless society, because people don't. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Because they don't trust themselves.
Yeah, and so there's like two things that happen. You're absolutely right, and I think people who are fundamentalists in their beliefs, regardless of whatever labels you put on their beliefs, I think they tend to be more like that than not, because they tend to live their life on a basis of fear that things are going to change, and they can't handle that, versus people who look forward to this idea that no, we can consciously make things better. We can consciously progress towards peace. And it can start in your every fucking day human relationships with your family, with your friends, with the people you come in contact with, period. And so if you don't like the idea of government, being authoritarian in the sense that they can tell you something and you have to do it whether you like it or not, guess what? That's based on a root of parenting and children, where parents have taught children that I am the boss, whatever I say is gold, and you have to do what you're told. Because if you don't do what you're told, I'm going to physically hurt you.
But they've been taught by our society that, though. I mean, what is law? Law is something that's enforced by the barrel of a gun.
That's the point.
That's what police are. That's what police are. Like, sorry, I cut you off on your point. I get you.
No, I mean, that is the point, that if we can adjust at the individual level, I believe, and this is systems, like, I think that can express itself in like this peaceful order, where all of a sudden there's this possibility of a day where everybody, like the overwhelming majority of people, just kind of wake up and go, government, why do we have these, what? Like, why do we need this? I don't know. Why do we need this? No one's getting murdered, like, no one's stealing shit, like, and you just go, what? Why? We don't need to be putting those people in prisons and cages, like, huh? And
have you ever watched that video, that YouTube video? It's based on like a Larkin Rose lecture, and it's like a man explaining to an alien what government is.
Has it been around for a while?
I think, like, I've tweeted out a couple times. It's been around for a couple.
I think so. Years. I think so. Something like it.
Yeah, keep going on your point, Andrew.
Well, I mean, that is the point. That video is a good video if it's the same one I'm thinking of. But
what is government? So your smartest people work in government?
No.
Nope. Actually, no. So the most trustworthy people, though, they work in government, right? No, they don't. And it's like just like keep going.
It's what McKenna always said, was that it's the least among us. It's the least, like, intelligent. It's the least understanding. It's the least, like, of everything that you could imagine in humanity, because think about the incentives involved for someone who's dedicating their life and will become part of the political class. So you have to understand that when politics are as important as they are in the U.S. and government's as big as it is, there will be professional politicians. In other words, that's what their job in life is about, is to be a politician. There's nothing else. So you've already pulled that human out of the ability to create new awesome consciousness from their own unique individual like expression, because now their motives are all about politics, you know, and working the deals, and sometimes it'd be good, sometimes it'd be bad, but the point is that the system itself is a magnet that sucks in people who want more power without having to do it on a voluntary basis. You don't think people's dicks get hard and pussies get wet when they can think that if I can get this not even a fucking law, if I can just get this regulation passed, oh, that fucker won't be able to do that anymore. Like,
I can't wait to tell people what they can and can't do.
Yeah. There are people, and so think about this, what's the percentage of Americans who are politicians? I have no fucking idea, but I don't think it's all that high. I can't imagine in any way it's more than 1%. Should I look that up? What do you think that is? What's the...
Not many. I mean, there's a lot of people that pretend like they're politicians, that's for sure. Like people that pretend they're Republican.
Yeah. That's
like,
true.
I just want to say I'm Republican. Yeah, I'm Republican. You know, it's because I'm more for business, and I'm not about small government. I tend to vote Republican because they're usually more business savvy. I just that argument always cracks me up, man. Like, it's just like you don't even understand. Like, who are you trying to fool, man? Like, who are you trying to like? It's just so. They really are. They really are. Like, oh man. Such a crazy world, man. Like, it's just our whole, like, and it's funnier too, like, because the more I've become unplugged, and the more like I recently really cut back drinking a lot. Like, I don't, like, it's really interesting to see, like, you know, you don't take a lot of victories when you drink a lot, ever. Like, it's harder to win at things in life even when it's just like. Even if you do it responsibly, right? It's still really hard to, like, make moves. Like since I've been working full time, I cut back my drinking way less because I didn't want to feel like shit and go to work. And then I was like, well, why would I even drink on my off days? Because that's my time. Like, that's all my time. That's my time to divorce myself from this situation of having to punch a clock for somebody else and willingly submit to tyranny every time I punch a clock. That's pretty much how it works. Like, I had to sign most of my rights away just to work there.
Yep.
But I need the money, so that's the situation I'm in. I trade my freedom for money, and that's pretty much it. And I'm worth a lot more than what I get paid. But, you know, unfortunately, like, I have to create that wealth for myself. Like, nobody's just gonna give it to me ever.
Well,
like,
you know, and like I there's an important point to make that's, like, easily overlooked, which, you know, you're obviously seeing it, but that's that number one, that fake paper money that's promised to you by the world's largest, you know, criminal organization. Like, you think that that's going to be meaningful? I mean, do you think that's going to bring meaning and happiness to your life? I mean, it's obvious that it's not. To me, it seems like on its face it's quite obvious. But then when you just get down to the details, the people who are rich and happy were happy before they were rich. Like, you don't see, you just, you know, and I think you have, and I've been around plenty of people, and to see that quite well versus the person who's wealthy that, you know, I'll ride my fucking Vespa around here, and, you know, behind the graying, balding dude driving his Maserati, and it's like, you know, that's his deal. He drives it 2 blocks to the grocery store, 2 blocks to the country club, and then back home, and it's like, Okay, so he worked all those fucking hours. He gave up all these things out of his life, and more power to him if he wants to do that. I'm not like trying to hate on him. It's just making the point that that's his expression. Is that
his car?
Yeah, is his car, but he doesn't really get to use it the way it's to be used because, like you said, he had to auction off, or she had to auction off a portion of their actual conscious existence. Like it's like a lease to own type thing, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It is crazy, man.
I went off. I went off on a little tangent, but my real point is that, and I had this realization the other day, out of nowhere. You have to tell me what you think, but was at some point, kind of in a Taoist sense, it seems like from reading some of the philosophy that you have to be able to wake up and be content with merely having the basics of our existence, which everyone agrees, food, water, and shelter. And if you can meet that in the course of a day, anything above that is a luxury and is not necessary for you to be happy. Yeah. And so that's where money, and so like what you said, a pay cut, what I'm talking about in a pay cut, you can obviously create more wealth through your actions, especially in an entrepreneurial sense, no doubt about it. But at some point you have to start analyzing, am I going to die, because that's the worst case scenario, because I'm not making X amount of dollars? Okay, I'm not going to die. 2, am I going to lose my place of shelter? Can I pay the rent? Or what happens if I don't pay the rent? Is it really that big of a deal if it's rent?
No, you'll get like a notice to leave the premises, and then you give them the money they want, and guess what? They cash your check.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like I know right now my credit's gonna take take a beating here because I don't have.
But so that's the question though. Is like, who fucking cares about credit in the first place? Like, why do you need credit?
I don't want to buy a house, that's for sure. Fuck that. That boom is that, or that bubble still hasn't burst yet. Like that's the whole thing. Like it never burst. Like it took a hit, but guess what? It's going to be a lot worse here in the future. I mean,
that's right. And then think who's going to be the real survivor. That's the person who. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. That's a person.
You're fine.
No, I'm getting. My wife's writing a message on a piece of paper for me to read. Whoa!
You're all good.
To us?
Founder.
To us?
The story of the founders for Airbnb and how they started it.
What about it?
They decided to quit their jobs and they were going to start something and they couldn't pay rent.
Oh,
yeah. Novel.
Okay.
Absolutely right.
Wait, sorry, say that again?
I said Mrs. Mind Novelty's absolutely right. The story of the founders.
The founders of what?
They quit their jobs to start a country.
No. See, that's awesome. Well, you know what? That's an interesting way to look at that too. But she's talking about the founders. Are you familiar with Airbnb?
No.
Really? Never heard of it?
Airbnb?
Yeah, the business.
No, never heard of it.
Wow. Okay, great. Oh, wow, that's kind of cool. Airbnb is a online platform, so air, bed, and breakfast. So for people to rent out like a room in their house, a couch in their house, or rent their whole house on a nightly basis to other people on Airbnb. And so it's kind of like eBay, so you have your profile and you get rated and reviewed, but it's all independent people running, their house or their property or whatever. And essentially it's decentralized accommodations run by individuals all over the world, and it's an enormous success story. Like The Economist just did a cover story on just a few months ago, and
wait a minute, Andrew. Stop there. You mean if you decentralize something, it becomes successful?
Yeah, it becomes...
That's crazy talk. Keep going.
Yeah, and so, just leave it up. Like, let's let humans. And so they had showed this graph because we do Airbnb, and so we've been doing it for a while now, and it's amazing. And like the people you get to connect with, who stay with you, are amazing. And we've had lots of friends do it all over the country, and same kind of stories. Like what's happening is this way of doing business that they decided to set up, and I'll tell you the story of the founders of Airbnb, and that's the in a second. But it's a platform, and this is like advanced, like 2013 thinking, like human to human thinking, where you know what, humans are actually pretty awesome. Overall, there's just a handful of super cunty ones that fuck it up for everybody in a regular basis. But when humans are outside of all the manipulation of their labels and all that shit, it can just be human individuals interacting. You create a community of strangers who, when you meet them, you're like making this human contact that's super positive in your life. It's super positive in their life because, say, they're traveling, they're on a trip. What a better way to make yourself feel good than to give this person an awesome experience while they're visiting, your city and staying in your house or your property or something. And
no, that's awesome. So I could get on Airbnb and come stay at your house?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's a plan.
Yeah, just mark it down.
Once I get well, that'll be the near future, I'm sure. Like, I think my money situation will get a lot better here shortly, and it will just kind of happen, and I'll be like, oh, I can live again.
Yeah, but, we'll definitely have you over. And so the story of the founders.
Oh, my bad. Keep going.
Is they were in this exact situation, and I think it was two dudes in San Francisco. Rent was about to be due, and they had decided to quit their jobs just to try to do something new. Just, kind of this whole thing like, you know what, we're going to take a chance and we're going to try to do something different. It's going to be a risk, we're not going to have the money. And they're sitting there, and it's kind of related to this idea that sometimes you don't actually find out who you are and what you're capable of until you're put in that situation of like no return or the dead end, and now it's like, now I got to figure something out. So they're sitting there in their apartment in San Francisco, and there's this big giant conference and in town, and there weren't enough hotels. Like, it was way overbooked. Nobody could find a place to stay. And they looked down. I guess they had like an air mattress, and they just kind of look at each other, start talking like, what if we could charge someone just sleep on our air mattress in our living room? Like, we're hustling. That's the way they're thinking. Like, we just gotta fucking hustle some money, and you know how this works. You've done it a lot. Yeah. I've done it a lot. We're gonna hustle it. Let's get these people in. Do you remember how much they paid? No, I don't know. Just whatever. $20. I don't know. And over the course of those few days, they had like, I don't know how many people in and out of their apartment sleeping on their air mattress, and that spawned the idea of Airbnb. Like, in other words, you can have a bed and breakfast that's just simply your mattress. And so, but the kind of caveat on the whole thing was, it just wasn't that cookie cutter corporate business experience that we were talking about earlier. It was this human connection, and they kind of like fucking got off on it, and they really enjoyed it. And the people, I mean, think about that. You're trying to go to this event. There's not enough hotels. You don't know where to go. You don't have any fucking clue where you're gonna stay that night. You have no idea. You might have to drive 3 hours. Who knows? Oh, I can just stay right here down the street at this dude's room or on this dude's couch, or hey, these people aren't there for the weekend, so they decided to rent out their flat, downtown. And so they see that in New York City, where you had all these hotels, when you map them, plot them, all around Times Square. That's it. So in other words, when people visited New York City, they didn't visit real fucking New York. They didn't get down and see what the village is like. They didn't get to see what Brooklyn's like. They went to these stupid fucking pre-processed, predetermined hotels, had pre-processed and predetermined New York City quote-unquote experiences but they didn't actually get to experience the life and the vibrancy and the society that's actually happening. Well, Airbnb now, when they plot all the Airbnb listings, it's fucking everywhere. It covers the entire city. And so now you've got somebody, and I talked to a guy, Jared James, last week, and I'm on the podcast. He's a tech startup guy in Denver, and he was just in New York City. He was staying down in the East Village, and it was Airbnb.
That's awesome, man. Like, you know what's funny is, like, I'm surprised I don't know about this because I usually just go to places where I can stay with friends.
Yeah.
Like, it's like luckily I've made a lot of friends. Like, when I went to Spain, I remember I stayed in a hotel, and that was probably my least favorite. Like, it was a fun vacation because I went to Spain, but it wasn't like when I went to Prague when I stayed in this cool hostel, or when I went to Morocco and I stayed with my friend's family, or when I went to England. It just makes so much more sense. Like, you actually live, you go and you stay in an area where normal people there live, and then you get that full experience, or that psychedelic experience that you were talking about traveling. So that's gangster, man. I can't wait to use that.
It's
Airbnb.
awesome. Yeah, we went, and Jolita went with us to Boulder last February to celebrate legalization, and
Oh yeah,
we
that's
stayed.
right.
We stayed in an Airbnb house.
Yeah, I remember you were asking me who do we know in Boulder.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I was like, Gonzo Green. So, but anyways, that's awesome, dude. Like, I had no idea that company existed, and it makes so much sense though. Like,
Well,
that's like that's how most great businesses are started. It's like, hey, let's just take a chance. Like, let's
especially when you're
bet on yourself. Like, let me
that's
bet
right.
on myself.
That's exactly right. And how, like, they just did this special event for people who host a live event this week, where the founders and a couple of the big people in the company, they have this thing at their headquarters. They just opened up in San Francisco, but they invited a few hundred hosts there too, and they live streamed it. And I'm telling you, I've been around the business culture bullshit so much in my life, and it was so refreshing just to see these people just kind of like be honest about what they're doing, and how they're betting and taking a risk on everyone who hosts, because those are independent contractors. Your entire business is bet on everybody else being awesome, that you can't control those experiences.
Well, I think that's interesting too, man, because that's like a very like free market, I'd even say anarchist thing.
I agree,
Just to like bet on the goodness of humanity. And that's what's funny too, is like you get accused like, oh, you just want crime everywhere if you're an anarchist. It's like, no, I don't. Like, I think anarchy can work because of the fact that humans are inherently good. Like, I don't go to church and believe the bullshit that humans are evil or that I'm born to sin and all that other nonsense.
Well, and see,
go ahead. Oh no, you like I just think that like I think it's beautiful to see that somebody with that philosophy is making a ton of money, and other people are making money, and customers are having great experiences, and it's all because of betting on humanity. Like, it's all betting on like the fact that people want to, come up to my town, let me show you what's fun to do here. You know what I mean? Or you have a free place to stay. You know what I mean?
That's it, and so like a great example of this, exactly what we're talking about. And first, I would just let you know what I did to change a lot of people's reactions to words. You know, so like when you use the word anarchy, you have to like already understand. I know you know this, that you say that to certain people, and they immediately, what's one word they're gonna think in their head? First reaction. Jolita, what do you think?
Oh, evil. You're evil.
Yeah. Well, evil, but like chaos. Like,
oh yeah, chaos.
It's just insanity. Like, which
riots on the streets.
Which is the evil? Yeah, the riots and the murder and the gang fucking rapes, the chaos. Well, the point is, and we learned this in my in one of my graduate courses on international relations, that anarchy Like the professor told us that if we used anarchy ever as a sense that it was chaos, he would fail us from the course. Because its definition is not chaos. Its definition is without order.
Yeah.
And guess what? When you look at the planet Earth and you look at the individual nation states, the nation states on planet Earth exist in a system of anarchy.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating. I've never thought about the bigger picture like that.
Whenever someone asks you something about anarchy and you want to try to, think of a possible solution to whatever they brought up, which I think is usually a trap, but that's a different tangent. But if you want to keep the solution, just think, well, what happens in reality right now when one country goes and decides they're going to murder a bunch of people in another country? Well, other countries get together and defend against that perceived threat. I mean, that's it. I mean, this is what happens. This is the order that we live in every single day. And so, because people tend to have for me, at least in my experience, the chaos thing's nonstop for me. This is what I always hear from fucking everybody. The insanity and the gang rape culture that just automatically gets rebooted. Like it springs alive like a fucking zombie, and everyone's dick is hard, just raping everybody. Versus using a word anarchy that is already loaded in their minds. Use a word like voluntary.
Voluntarism.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and you just go, you know what? I mean, this is how I see it, at least. Like, I see the possibility of a really awesome future founded on peace and cooperation that exists in a full voluntary sense. In other words, no single human can force another human to do something they don't want to do, as long as they're not harming another human. Like, it's really simple. It seems.
It really is.
Seems. I don't know. Maybe not.
Well, I mean, my counter argument to the Earth is all these governments that popped out from anarchy is God wanted these governments there, Andrew. Clearly, this country was founded in Jesus. I mean, no, I'm just teasing. I get tired of hearing that shit, and especially being in Texas, I'm sure you hear it all the time.
Well, yeah, and when you think about the actual founders and the way they thought, and most of them, and it's not trying to even get into the numbers of how many were this and how many were that. It's just simply that the ideas they expressed had nothing to do with their religion. It had everything to do with the Renaissance and ancient Greece, free thinking.
Yeah, it wasn't about free thinking. I mean, and I heard Thomas Jefferson really because I guess the Native American nations, that's pretty much what the United States was based on, the Native American nations, and it was based on a lot of stuff. But I think it's interesting, man. It's interesting to. I think people are starting to wake up. I think the internet is really helping people realize that, just because the country of the United States does evil things doesn't mean that the people that live there are evil, or just the same with unfortunately, I don't think people realize that all Muslims aren't evil, but I think people are starting to become more aware of that fact, or that all Christians really just, you know what I'm saying, want to control you, or you can't make a generalization. It's a case by case when it comes to human being. You can't. And I think that it is refreshing that the whole let's invade Syria thing had such a disapproval. Everybody was against us going to war again. So I think there's a lot of hope, man. I think that there's signs like Airbnb and just excuse me. I just thinking I always see the bright future, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It's easy to say, oh, the shit's hitting the fan. But in reality, I don't think it is. It's gonna regulate itself.
Well, you're gonna read soon, I'm sure, The War of Art, because it's coming back up again. And and Pressfield, that's what he delineates the difference between the artist, and when he explains the artist, that could be the entrepreneur, the creator, the painter, the musician, just anything you're doing to express who you are as a human in a peaceful way. That's the artist. And the artist is always looking forward to creating something better. like, we can do something better, we can make it more peaceful, and actually it is, in a lot of ways, becoming at least less violent in America, but the media doesn't tell you that. I mean, you don't get that sense. Religion doesn't tell you that, because if you're a fundamentalist in your belief, you think that the truth is in the past, like it's already happened. And since it's already happened, there's nothing that can come that will be better.
Yeah.
And so think about how that fucks up your perception of other humans. Like, then you're not like you and I. You're not going like, hey, I can't wait till like we're gonna you make these.
So we're gonna meet and hang out.
Yeah,
I can't wait for this weekend. Oh, real quick plug, shameless plug. Sorry to interrupt, Andrew. This weekend, comedy show, Columbus, Ohio. Me and friends are putting it on. Hot Comedy presents Aaron Kleiber live.
We didn't
Can't wait for that shit.
Dude, we didn't even get to talk about that.
I know.
I think I've got like a few
talking the whole time. We're like an hour and a half into it, and we didn't even talk about it because that's how much I love talking to you, dude.
Yeah.
Whenever we talk, we'll talk for like 2 hours, and we're like, I guess we should probably end this.
Well, and just so you know, I'm on a 2-hour time limit. What's it say?
Like 15.
About 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That my setup is pretty unique, but it's a where there's a will, there's a way type setup.
And
you just make
that's
it
how
work.
most podcasting setups are. Like that's how most of them are, and I'm not hating. But anyways, as you were saying, if you're an Ohio listener, though, please go to Google Aaron Kleiber Live in Columbus, buy some tickets, come hang out with us. But we're always looking for the creator. We're always looking for art. We're always looking for positive change. That's what you were saying, right?
Yeah, and that's the artist, yeah, and the entrepreneur, and these people taking risks. You're quitting your job, you're taking risks on new ventures and new ideas, and maybe you know what, and that's you kind of mentioned this, like you're not actually in control of everything else. You can just simply be in control of some very specific decisions that you make day to day, and you can turn those into a positive direction. And sometimes the biggest decision you're ever gonna make is cutting off like shitty relationships with shitty people, because those shitty people end up running and ruining and destroying your life, and you're just warp zone the energy straight out of you. And so, but once again, you have to wake up to see that, and I think that's the biggest struggle and fear, and then also the fear of detaching yourself from this really kind of crazy programmed, like, I hate using the word because it's really loaded, of consumerism, but of just this idea of needing things you don't need, because if I get them, other people will think that I'm awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know what was there's, when you brought that up, so there's these, so this guy really wanted this certain brand TV because he liked the picture. So his kids come in, and they're trying to convince him to, oh, just get this and that. Go to Apple TV, and it's like the typical, like, it was just funny because like his kids clearly just started reading things about consumerism on the internet, and so his dad ended up like buying the TV he wanted, which was like a Samsung. And I just remember like his son. This is totally random, but his son was just like, "Fine, have fun being a consumer."
Are you serious? That's awesome.
That's serious. And I'm like, dude, like, he's just getting the TV he likes. And I'm like, and it's not even like I hooked the guy up to, like, I took $60 off the TV. So I could price match on him.
Yeah. You're my boy, man. Because I got hooked up like that too at Best Buy.
Yeah, and it's just like they price match. Like it's like a big business. Like it's actually kind of like cool. Like we're encouraging showrooming because they train their employees to say, guess what? We can price match. It's actually like a genius business thing. And I still have a lot of respect for them because they like laid off a bunch of white collar useless jobs, like people that were making $90,000 a year and weren't really carrying their weight. They're like, oh, you're done. Like, and it's just like, and now like the stocks like quadrupled. So, but anyways, back to, I think consumerism is the right word, but I think it's more of like you know, Brandon Farley, like, he's such a smart young dude. Like, he's like, you know, I don't think it's ever intended to control people. It just does. It's always really intended to entertain you. And it's like, yeah, I guess it really is.
Well,
Like
oh, good.
oh no, keep going.
If you see yourself as an individual and you find worth and value in yourself as an individual, consumerism can be nothing but endless entertainment and irony and mockery. Like, it can be fun if you want to be fun, but it doesn't mean anything to you beyond that, beyond wasting fake paper money. And if you don't really truly find value in yourself as an individual human being, consumerism for so many fucking people becomes where they find their self-worth. Yeah, and they get addicted to it.
It becomes a drug. It becomes like, it's just like consuming, like consumption is so loaded, and I think that's why it is appropriate. Like it is so loaded, like whether it be like I was thinking about, like, it was funny, like before like when I was running late from work, and this thing started a little bit late, but it was what did you say? You said something like all good, get medicated and take it easy. We're on Mexican time down here, and it was pretty funny, right? But then I thought, like, medicated, like that's kind of a loaded word, because then I'm thinking, yeah, I think I'm just gonna just chill. I don't think I'm gonna drink. I don't think I'm gonna partake in anything else. And I was like, I might get a couple sodas and some food, and I'm like, oh, that's my medication tonight, food and soda. And it's just like anything that can get out of hand. If I drank 20 sodas a day, that's not going to be healthy. If I ate fast food 5 times a day, like that's, and I think it's just anything that's done to excess isn't good for you. Like there's no peace to what you do. There's no zen, in a sense, to what you're doing. It's all
well because what ends up happening is we were talking. It's funny, we were talking about this right before we started talking, Jolito and I, about you can get in that sense where the yin yang concept of balance in the life becomes so overwhelmingly too much in one area and too direction, and you just lose proportionality of what's actually happening, and that's that excess, because it's basic economics as well, and it's just the law of diminishing marginal utility. So each extra thing you put in has less, value typically to anybody. So if you've got a million $1 bills, those individual $1 bills mean less to you than the person who only has one. Yeah. And so you have to have, some sort of just conscious understanding of that, I think. And I just don't like to hate too much if someone, like, if they get their stuff together and they're doing their thing and they're loving their life and they happen to like something that is also, say, trendy, I can't hate on that person because that's actually what they like. But unfortunately, there'll be only one out of a million who actually like it. Like, don't get me started about music groups, so...
Well, unfortunately, there's hipsters who like to say, like, hey, have fun in being a consumer, Dad. Like, it was just so funny. It's like, what do you, like, and he was like a teenage kid. It's like, yeah, have fun not having a job and living in your dad's house for free, douchebag. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are you contributing to society, asshole? Nothing.
Because if in an enlightened sense, like, you see consumerism as something that is a way you can be controlled as a human being, and you can lose sense of your own identity, then you should feel sorry for people in that condition, not because they kind of don't really actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And a lot of times, I hope my bosses don't listen to this, but a lot of times, like, people want to buy a TV, and they don't necessarily need it. They just really like me, and I give them a good deal. And a lot of times I'll be like, I think you should think about it. Like, I know business is important that day, but what's really more important is that I feel good about what I've sold and that person who bought it.
Yeah.
feels good about what they've bought. Like, that's the most important thing. Like, you know, like, I mean, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Think win-win.
Yep.
I mean, that's such a fundamental thing in every transaction in your life. Like, is this a win-win? Or even like in your relationships, like what you were talking about. Like like I'm a giving person. Like, I like to give you my attention. I like to give you my good energy. But as soon as you start to try to take my attention, or you try to take my positive energy instead of just letting me give it to you, then I start having problems with them. And it's
yeah, I know that.
like, you know what I mean? And it's like, normally, like, if I just went out of my way, but if you start making it a habit of like trying to get in my space or trying to dominate my time, then we're gonna have issues. Or you know what I mean? So it's
because I mean, the way I see it, and I'm actually unfortunately going to wrap this up officially here in less than 90 seconds. But the way I see it is that you're, I don't even remember what I was going to say now. The domination of the control. Yeah, if you, what you're actually doing is respecting them as an individual human. So in other words, you respect their thoughts, you respect their shit, as long as they're doing that to you as another human being. But as soon as they take advantage of that and they start trying to take, like you said, that's unacceptable. Like, no human needs to do that, including myself. You know, like, none of us.
Absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely.
if I'm around, and especially if they're doing it to someone you know is just kind of more of a passive, defensive person, that'll just set me off. I'll go insane. Like, I can't handle that. You're not gonna get away with it. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So,
and that's been even just doing the podcast, like that happens, man. Like, people want to be a part of it so bad, and it's just like, well, remember, this is still something that I do. Like, you can't come in and, like, this is my expression. Like, that's the way I treat the podcast. Like, it's my expression. It's my expression of who I am, what I'm thinking at the time, what I'm interested in at the time, and that's why it goes all over the place, because I'm interested in so many different things.
yeah, I mean,
And as soon as somebody, anyways, I think it's been 90 seconds. So.
Well, I just got to do 2 minutes, but dude, you're awesome, man. I really, you were the number. I think Caleb Assator had me on the first, and I think you were second, something like that. But we've always had awesome interactions on Twitter, and a lot of what you do is inspiring, not just to myself, but to other people, and I hear it from other people when I talk to them. And
that's a weird thing to hear, but I really appreciate it. Like,
yeah, so that's what you're doing. I mean, the hot comedy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
isn't that funny though? Like, when you do you, it's inspiring. Like, you know what I mean?
That's it. And you're gonna get hate at first from certain people who don't want you to take that risk, because they want that control that they have on you when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. But once you get past that little thing, it's awesome. And the people who are around you then are the people who actually like who you actually are. Who's better than that? And then who's better than you? Nobody's better than you, Mr. Drew Sample. It's at Drew Sample on fucking Twitter. Anyway, I'm cutting this off, but you're awesome, man. So
dude.
That's done. But we can talk here for a second, Toledo. And,
and
just wrap it up. But
let me use the restroom real quick. Hopefully that's not recording still, but if it is, oh well. I go to the bathroom, people. So I'll be right back.